no one wants to hear certain words. I heard those words in the office of the Clerk of Superior Court in Cabarrus County. Mr. Medlin, this will fails. Alfred Borg, one of the members of our community, moved here with his wife from New Jersey several years ago. They arrived in North Carolina with wills made in New Jersey. Those were excellent wills in New Jersey. Mr. and Mrs. Borg did not update them when they moved to North Carolina. Now, Mr. Borg has given me permission to tell this story. His wife died. He brought me her will, and I presented it to the court, only to be found that that will did not pass muster under North Carolina law. Now, had Mr. Borg not been able to probate that will, one of his relatives would have inherited a huge amount of his wife's estate. Mr. Borg needed all that money in order to live appropriately in his final years. With a lot of detective work, hundreds of phone calls to New Jersey, we finally, after about 6 months, found the witnesses to that will. We were very fortunate, but it took a lot of time and a lot of money to find them. The will was finally probated. I used to ask a group like this, who has a will? I don't ask that question anymore. I simply say everyone in this group has a will. Now, whether you had it drawn at a lawyer's office or not, you have a will. And if you didn't draw one at a lawyer's office, the state of North Carolina will make one for you. It's called the intestate succession law. Whatever you think your plan may be, that intestate succession law will be different, and it won't be what you want. That's the most important thing I'm here to talk about today. Accomplish your goals in your estate planning papers. Let's get your goals met with all of your estate planning papers, because when the government decides how your assets are divided, it will not be what you wanted. That law spreads assets around, it's not going to be what you want. You see, your desires are unique. Only you know your family and your assets. And again, I'm trying to be sure that we don't accidentally create a problem for your relatives out in the future. We never want to do that. One of the most important things you can plan on with any will, especially for young parents, is who would be the guardians of your children. Because unless you tell the court who will be your guardians of your children, the court makes that decision for you. You be sure you make that decision. You know your children, you know your family, you know who ought to have that job. You also know certain special needs of children. For instance, sometimes there's a need to have a trust for special needs children, or trusts for education of children down the road. Those are the sort of things we plan together and see what to do to best help your family. Also, I want to be sure you choose the executor who will settle up your business, find your assets, pay the bills, and be responsible for your estate. You can see the pattern here. We're trying to make sure your desires, not the desires or the decisions of government, handle your estate. In particular, we want to be avoiding family fights. And you've seen them. You've seen them in the community, maybe even had them in your own family. They can break up a family and last for generations going forward. One of the most important things we do, plan to keep family harmony and make decisions that need to be made. For instance, family heirlooms. They're important. People attach a lot of emotional value to them. The watch I'm wearing here is the watch my father wore when he was in Europe during World War II. That watch will never leave my family. I want to be sure that in your own family, those heirlooms are handled appropriately and avoid future problems. Cut them off right now. Make those decisions. Work with me to be sure that your desires are handled. Something I do find troubling these days, and something dangerous, are wills that people acquire off the internet or from form books. or they just pick up a form somewhere at the barber shop, wherever, because those are cookie cutter approaches to your estate plan. And your estate plan is far, far more important and complicated than any form could ever address. Also, whenever using a form or an internet will, it's typically multi-state, typically broadly worded. But in North Carolina, whenever a will is probated, words in that will are given proper legal meaning. And it's very easy to think a will says one thing, it's going to be interpreted another way. Again, don't open up your family to those family fights or those misunderstandings from the cookie cutter approach to estate planning. Your estate is yours. It is complicated far more than most people think. And don't take your estate plan, that square peg, and pound it into the round hole of a form or something way too general. I'm also very concerned about revocable living trusts. People are often sold as a remedy for their estate planning needs or to preserve privacy or avoid estate taxes. Folks, very, very few of us these days have estate tax problems. The government's largely gotten out of the estate tax business, and there simply is no need to pay thousands and thousands of dollars for expensive, complicated trusts when most people need a fairly simple will, but a well-drawn will that meets their particular needs, not overly broad general needs. I gave this same talk at my own church within the last few weeks and found among 30 people attending there 4 different families that had paid many thousands of dollars for revocable living trusts or other complicated estate planning methods that they did not need. I want to see you pay hundreds of dollars rather than thousands and get what you need in your estate plan if all you really need is a fairly simple estate plan. Granted, sometimes it's possible to pay very little money to get an estate plan, but I find that the quickie, cheapy way of estate planning is often the most expensive estate plan that can ever be made because it typically won't be what you want, and it will lend itself to that family fight going into the future. Again, there are many wonderful tools available to us, especially for high-income people or folks with large estates. Many wonderful things I can do to truly minimize estate taxes in estates where that could be a problem. But let's talk about it and see what the need is in your family. Again, you be in charge of your estate planning, not the government imposing a plan upon you. I also want to talk about powers of attorney. Again, none of us know when we're going to die, but we know that between now and that time, there is some likelihood of the bad car crash, the bad illness, when you cannot handle your own business. In those circumstances, have a business power of attorney ready, and you decide who will make your business decisions for you, be it a spouse, child, good friend, someone you trust, and someone who has business experience and who can handle your business for you. But that paper has to be set up now while you're mentally able to do so. Once that power of attorney for business purposes is needed, it's too late to make it. You have to make it now. Same thing with a medical power of attorney, or healthcare power of attorney as it's often called. If you don't have a medical power of attorney, and you cannot decide for yourself and communicate with your medical providers what you want done, it's a problem, a real problem for the medical community. Let's get together and decide who in your family is going to make those medical decisions for you and have that paper ready in case it's ever needed. That's important for you and important for your whole family for its well-being. Lastly, let's talk about a living will. You've heard about it before. Technically, it's a declaration of a desire for a natural death. It tells the medical community, in the event I can no longer communicate my medical desires, and I'm terminally ill, truly terminally ill, I'm going to die from whatever illness I have, I tell the medical community, you tell them no heroic means to keep you alive. Let me die. My time is over. Understand, that doesn't mean you're very, very ill. It means you are going to die, but you tell the medical community, no heroic means to keep me alive. Let me go. My time's over. Folks, these decisions sometimes aren't easy to make. I understand that. But let's sit down and talk together and decide what your family needs. I'm often saddened by what happens in families when people are not willing to plan. Consider the family of Martin Luther King. Dr. King was assassinated back on April 4th, 1968. He left 4 small children, a grieving widow, and the American civil rights movement without a leader. Now, Dr. King, some time before he died, was the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize. He won a huge cash award, but he never sat down with an attorney and drew up an estate plan. Martin Luther King's 4 children, grown today, are still fighting about his estate, and quite frankly, his legacy and his estate are not settled because of that failure to plan. Don't fall into that same trap. Plan for your family. They deserve it. You deserve that peace of mind of knowing you've talked to a qualified attorney about your desires. Keep in mind that not only should you have an estate plan, but you need to be talking to your own family. You need to be reaching out to your extended family. Those folks also need to know the importance of an estate plan, because without it, we all understand the family fights that can go on year after year after year. And that's not something you want in your family. You can avoid it, and it should be avoided. I often talk with folks about the need to reverse engineer your own life. Look out into that future and decide what you want said at your own funeral. Those nice things you want people to say about you. Well, be about doing the things that allow those folks that speak at your funeral to say those nice things about you. Because we all know that we really don't care what's said about how big our house was, how fast our sports car, how much jewelry we had. That's not what we care about. It's, did we take care of our family? Did we take care of business? Did we nip that family fight in the bud and never let it develop? Because no one at your funeral is going to say, you know, he had the biggest, you fill in the blank. That's not what we care about. We do care that folks who stay behind are cared for, that they have the tools to handle our business. That's what you and I will talk about when we plan your estate. We respect those who remain behind. Quite frankly, you'll probably never know these documents are used. But those who have to handle your business will care a great deal, and they will be extremely gratified that you handle business. Even if you have an existing estate plan, feel free to bring it to me. Let's take a look at it and see if circumstances have changed, or if you've had a change of mind, or change of any sort. Take a look at those papers you already have. Let's see if we need to do any further planning, because I want to be sure that your estate plan is yours and you've made those decisions, not the government making those plans for you. I think that's important for your family, and I certainly urge you, take this matter seriously. Those who depend on you deserve it.